All right, it has been a very long day here in Hammonton, New Jersey. And as you can see behind me there where those flood lamps are, that is where the crash site is. And that is where the two helicopters are currently. So this is what I know happened so far, at least according to officials that I talked to earlier. Preliminary reports show that the helicopters, two helicopters, took off from Hammonton Municipal Airport a little before 11:30 this morning. And according to witnesses, they tell me that the two pilots, that they're friends, they frequent this area, they frequently fly into Hammonton Municipal Airport in tandem together. Actually, we talked to a owner of a restaurant on the airport property. He says that the two pilots were actually in there this morning. They had breakfast and they took off like they normally do, and they were actually watching the pilots taking off from the airport. And then all of a sudden, something happened, and the helicopters went down. They crashed about 2 miles away from the airport, which is where we are right now, and they don't know why it happened. Right now, I'm on the property of a witness who heard the crash. She came running out with her and her family. She tells me that she heard this whoop, 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 and then what sounded like gears crunching almost, and then a loud bang. She thought it was her water heater that actually exploded, because we're out in a very, very rural area in Atlantic County. We're just south of Wharton State Forest, and there's pretty much nothing out here, which is honestly a blessing. Not many homes, not many businesses. So as you can see, it's just a field back there. So she heard this bang, and then she said her husband looked out the window and he started screaming, "Call 911, call 911. They saw the helicopters crash in their backyard about 500 feet back that way. So they ran out there, and she actually said she held the pilot's hand, who was conscious. He was breathing, but he wasn't talking. She just held his hand and told him that he was going to be okay. He's going to be okay. And by that time, the sirens, they could hear them, and she was telling him the sirens are for him and they're on their way. And, that he's going to be okay and just to hang in there. That she had no idea that there was a second helicopter that crashed, because the second helicopter she thought was just a piece of the first helicopter. She didn't realize it was a second helicopter, and that there was a second pilot in that other helicopter who unfortunately passed away. Now, the pilot that she was holding hands with, officials tell me that he was taken to the hospital in critical condition. So why did this crash happen? Well, we don't know yet. The FAA and the NTSB, they will be out here tomorrow and they will conduct their investigation. I will say, going back to the airport, we have no idea if this has anything to do with it, but just a little bit of, inside knowledge. I talked to an aviation attorney tonight who said the smaller airports, which is what Hammonton Municipal Airport is, it's a very, very small airport. They don't have air traffic controllers. So pilots have to communicate with each other by radio. They don't have air traffic control helping them, guide them through on the tarmac, or, getting them into the flight area. I don't know aviation speak too well, but there's no air traffic controller. So the pilots are responsible for communicating with each other over their radios. Now, was that something that comes into play? Well, investigators are going to have to determine that. Another factor is, remember, the witness said they saw the two pilots flying off together. And that witness tells me that they often fly in tandem. Did that have something to do with it? Were they flying too close? These are all the questions that are going to need to be answered. Was there some type of mechanical issue? Was there some type of medical issue? We don't know. But I will say that the two pilots, according to the witness who owns the restaurant on the airport, says that they seemed happy. They were talking to people, and it was just a normal morning at the restaurant. And then they went off on their helicopters, flew off, and then 2 miles later, the helicopters went down. So that is what I know so far. They have not released the names of the pilots yet, or at least the deceased pilot. They probably won't release the name of the pilot who's in critical condition, but normally anybody who passed away, they will release that person's name once the next of kin and family have been notified. But at this point, the last time I spoke to the police chief here in Hammonton, not all family members have been notified at this point. But that is what I know so far. And obviously, this is something that is of a concern. We've seen many aviation incidents around the country, and it's just something that the FAA and NTSB will be looking into for months to come, likely. I mean, this investigation probably exceed well into a year. So we'll have to see what the outcome of this particular crash was when that comes out.